sponsor-related visa. So obviously there's different visa and the different number, and it can be quite confusing as well. But I think it's important to know what they are and remember the subclass, the 3 digits, and don't mix it up because it can be very different for each visa. So the first one is 407. So you might have heard it before. It's a training visa, and exactly as the name is say, the purpose of the visa is for training. It's not so much of employing sponsor, but it's training visa. And in this 407, there's 3 pathway, but I'll just talk about 2 today. The more common pathway. So the first one is when you need the training to work for registration. So there's certain occupation that require such X amount of hour working before they can register. So for example, it can be doctor, it can be electricians, it can be different type of specialists. So first, you must be able to prove that you have the necessary educations and experience to do the training. And secondly, you must be able to prove that you need the training in order to become registered or get your license. And the second pathway of the 407 visa is training to enhance skill. So this one is for a list of about 500 occupations to choose from. And this occupation doesn't necessarily require training for a license or for registration, but you can get this visa if you can prove that you need the training to enhance your skill. And in order to get this visa, you need at least 12-month working experience. So it's definitely not a visa for someone that's straight out of uni, because you would have to accumulate 12 months of full-time working experience in your occupation before you are eligible for this visa. And from your employer would need a structured training program that is really tailored for yourself as well. And both of these 407 visa, you can get a visa granted up to 2 years, so 24 months. But unfortunately, there's no permanent resident pathway at least there's no direct permanent resident pathway from this 407 visa. So 407 visa doesn't lead to PR. And then obviously to the more commonly known, the 482, or what used to be a 457 visa. And there are 3 streams in this visa. There's a short term, there's a long term, and there's a labor agreement, which I will not talk about today. Sean might touch up a bit on that later. So with the short term stream, obviously there's a big list. There's 430 occupations on the list. But because it's short term, so it means that these are the occupations that the Australian job market only needs temporary. So unfortunately, there's no permanent resident pathway from this, but you can get a visa up to 2 years and a once renewal as well. But in order to apply the 482 visa, you need at least 2 year related work experience. So again, definitely not something that for fresh graduate, because obviously you wouldn't have any experience when you just graduate. 482 has another stream, a long-term stream. So these are the occupations that the Australian government needs for the long term. So obviously they are a permanent pathway. And the requirement is the same as the short-term stream, but the number of occupation eligible is much less. It's less than half. You would also need 2 year related work experience, and the visa can be granted up to 4 years. And obviously they're a permanent resident pathway through the 186. So with the 186 is a permanent visa. So if you got your 186 granted, you are Australian permanent resident. And there are also 3 pathways: direct entry, transitions, and also a labor agreement. So with direct entry stream, you need 3 year full-time work experience. And if you have that, you have a sponsoring company, then you can apply directly for PR. And there's also another stream, what we call a transition stream. So this is coming from the 482. So if you have a 482 visa on a long-term stream, and you have been working on a 482 visa for at least 3 years, then you can apply for the 186 transition stream. And this is also a PR. And finally, the 484 and the 191, which has been just introduced, I think November 16, 17 November last year, together with the 491. So the 494 actually replaced the 187 visa. If you've been in Australia, I think 1 or 2 years ago, you would have known the 187 visa, which now has been phased off and replaced by the 494. So with the 494 visa, the list of occupation is huge, over 600 occupations. But the catch is that your employer must be in regional area only. So that excludes Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane. So the rest of Australia are fine. So even in big city like Adelaide, Perth, Gold Coast, that are still considered regional area. So if you have an employer sponsor in this area, you can consider 494. However, the work experience required of the applicant is also 3 years. So definitely, again, not something that would be suitable for fresh graduate. The 494 will be granted for 5 years. And the pathway to permanent resident is through the 191 visa. So The 191 visa is basically a permanent residence, and you can apply for the 191 if you hold either a 491 or 494. And you have to hold this visa for 3 years, and you have to earn at least 53,900 Australian dollar in taxable income for 3 years, for at least 3 out of the 5 years of your visa validity. So basically, this is the employer-sponsor related visa. So pretty much all of the visa I just mentioned require an Australian business that have meets the requirement, which Sean will talk later. But in essence, you will need an Australian business agreeing to sponsor you for your work, and then you can apply for this visa.